You meet someone and something just clicks. Maybe it's the conversation. Maybe it's the way they looked at you. Maybe it's nothing you can even explain. But within days, sometimes within hours, you're already there, already attached, already invested in something that technically just started. And somewhere in the back of your mind, you know this feeling because you've been here before and you know how it usually ends. So why does it keep happening? Why does your brain do this every single time before you've even had a chance to decide if this person is worth it? Not everyone attaches at the same speed, and that difference isn't about how emotional you are or how desperate you are for connection. It's neurological. Some brains are simply wired to bond faster than others, and that wiring has a traceable origin. When you experience a meaningful interaction with someone, a deep conversation, sustained eye contact, physical touch, even just someone making you feel genuinely understood, your brain releases oxytocin. Often called the bonding hormone, oxytocin creates feelings of closeness, trust, and attachment. It's the same chemical released between a mother and newborn, between long-term friends, between people who've been through something intense together. For most people, oxytocin builds gradually over repeated positive interactions. But for people who attach quickly, the brain releases oxytocin in larger quantities, more rapidly, and in response to smaller triggers. A single meaningful conversation can produce a bonding response that would take someone else weeks of interaction to develop. Your brain isn't being irrational, it's being efficient in a way that doesn't always serve you. Oxytocin creates the bond, but dopamine is what makes early attachment feel so intoxicating. In the early stages of connection, your brain is flooded with dopamine every time you interact with this new person. Every text, every meeting, every moment of feeling seen by them, all of it triggers a dopamine release that makes the experience feel electric, significant, almost faded. The problem is that dopamine doesn't respond to reality. It responds to potential. And in the early stages of connection, before you actually know this person, potential is unlimited. Your brain hasn't collected enough data to moderate the response. It fills in the gaps with the best possible version of who this person might be, and it bonds to that projection as if it were real. This is why fast attachment so often feels like the most real and intense feeling you've ever had, even when the relationship is only days old. You're not attaching to the person in front of you. You're attaching to the person your dopamine-flooded brain decided they could be. And when reality eventually arrives, when the actual person shows up with their complexities and limitations and humanness, the gap between who you imagined and who they are creates a crash that feels like heartbreak, even when nothing technically went wrong. Here's where the pattern gets its roots. Attachment theory research consistently shows that people who attach quickly in adulthood very often experienced one of two things in early childhood. Either inconsistent caregiving, where love and attention were sometimes present and sometimes absent, training the brain to bond rapidly when connection was available because it might disappear, or emotional neglect, where the need for deep connection was chronically unmet, creating an intense hunger for closeness that in adulthood causes the brain to latch onto any meaningful connection with urgency. In both cases, the nervous system learned the same lesson in different ways. Connection is rare and precious and potentially temporary. Get close while you can, bond before it's gone. That lesson made complete sense in the environment where it was learned. A child who bonds quickly to an inconsistent caregiver is doing something adaptive, maximizing the connection available during the windows it appears. But that same strategy in adult relationships creates a pattern that is almost impossible to sustain. Because most adults, especially early in a relationship, need time and space to develop feelings at their own pace, and a nervous system running a get close fast program doesn't naturally provide that space. This is the part nobody talks about clearly enough. Fast attachment doesn't just hurt the person experiencing it. It actively creates the outcome they were afraid of, and understanding exactly why is important. When you attach quickly, your behavior changes, often in ways you're not fully conscious of. You become more attentive, more communicative, more emotionally invested than the situation technically warrants. You might text more, make yourself more available, express feelings earlier than the other person is ready to hear. Bring an intensity to something that the other person is still casually exploring. From your side, this feels like natural enthusiasm. From their side, it can feel like pressure, like the relationship has skipped several stages they needed to move through at their own pace. And people who feel pressured in early connection do one of two things: they pull back or they leave. When they pull back, you feel the distance and your anxious attachment system activates. The withdrawal feels threatening, so you pursue harder, which increases their sense of pressure, which causes them to withdraw further. This is the anxious avoidance cycle, and it is almost exclusively triggered by the mismatch in attachment speed between two people. The painful irony is that the very behaviors driven by your fear of losing the connection are the behaviors most likely to cause it. Your nervous system is trying to protect the bond by strengthening it, but it's strengthening it on your side only, and the asymmetry is what breaks it. The reason it keeps ending the same way isn't because you keep choosing the wrong people. It's because you keep bringing the same nervous system to every new connection. And that nervous system, shaped by early experience, driven by oxytocin sensitivity and dopamine projection, runs the same program regardless of who the other person is. You meet someone, the program activates. You attach. The attachment accelerates faster than the relationship can sustain. The other person feels the asymmetry. They create distance. Your attachment system reads that distance as threat. You pursue, they withdraw. It ends. Then you meet someone new, and the program resets. Because the program doesn't learn from outcomes. It only responds to triggers. And the trigger is connection. Every time connection appears, the program runs, until you do something that changes the program itself. The goal is not to stop attaching. The goal is not to become emotionally unavailable or to artificially suppress what you feel. Trying to feel less is not a strategy. It's just a different kind of suffering. The actual goal is to create a gap between feeling and acting. Your feelings are real, but the behavior that follows the feeling, the texting, the pursuing, the expressing more than the situation can hold, that behavior is what creates the problem. And behavior can be changed even when feelings cannot be controlled. The first practice is deliberate pacing, not playing games, but consciously choosing to let a connection breathe, to allow your feelings to exist without immediately expressing them at full volume, to give the other person time to catch up rather than arriving at a destination they didn't know you were heading toward. The second practice is reality anchoring. When you notice yourself projecting, building a future with someone, imagining who they are before you truly know, pause and ask what you actually know about this person right now. Not what you imagine, not what you hope, what the evidence actually shows. This interrupts the dopamine projection cycle before it builds into a full attachment. And the third, the most important, is understanding that your capacity for deep, fast attachment is not a flaw. It is an extraordinary quality that the right person will meet, rather than be overwhelmed by. The pattern doesn't need to be eliminated. It needs to be understood, and then directed somewhere it can actually survive. You don't attach fast because you're broken. You attach fast because somewhere along the way your brain learned that connection was something to hold on to the moment it arrived. That's not weakness. That's a nervous system that understood something true, that real connection is rare. The work isn't learning to want it less. It's learning to let it grow at a pace that gives it a real chance. If this video explains something about yourself you've been trying to understand, subscribe. Because this is exactly what we do here every week.